off the field, gosh, you've done so many incredible things, being recognized for your humanitarian efforts, winning many awards, highlighted probably by the 2016 Walter Payton Award. Close to all of our hearts on this call, Larry's an avid golfer, two-time winner of the AT&T. So it really accomplished resume. I skipped over so many things. And just again, thank you, Larry, for being on the call. Really, our thoughts, Larry, were just a very casual, if you can do casual, I guess, via Zoom Q&A here. And so the folks, many folks, thank you guys for submitting some questions. Appreciate that very much. And just thought we'd do some Q&A. And so why don't we start off? I always love to go back a bit, and if you don't mind, why don't we start and just tell us, you've had such an illustrious career. Tell us a little bit about a little bit about your story, your background, and how you got to where you are today, if you don't mind.
Yeah, and I always try to have that one being my father. Obviously, he's been there since the very beginning, and I trust him unequivocally, to help guide me. It's the things that I'm doing and things that I've tried to do. He's experienced, somebody who's had that experience. I have guys like, like my late grandfather, who was always somebody I could rely on no matter what time of night I call him. And he answered the phone, and we could talk about whatever I was going through, whatever I was struggling to handle at the time. And it was great to be able to have, that type of leadership, that type of guidance from people that really care about you. And I don't think anybody, can really be successful in life if you don't have positive mentorship. It's difficult because there's always going to be circumstances that you don't understand and that you need guidance with. And having those people to be able to rely on, is able to makes things much easier for you to be able to navigate.
That's great. It's so nice to have those sounding boards for sure. And coming up, you've played for a lot of incredible coaches. What are maybe some of the values, if you will, that some of the top coaches who you've played for maybe instill in their organizations and the teams that you've played for?
Well, the biggest thing for coach for me is somebody who can relate to his players, right? And you guys can all understand as PGA professionals that every student that you have is not the same. Not everybody has the same level of talent or the same commitment and drive to improve. Some people are just out there to learn, to be able to go out and hit and gig a little bit better. Some guys and girls are trying to improve so they can play collegiately. Some people are trying to play so they can play professionally. I mean, everybody is different, and I think being able to identify what the agenda and objective of your students are is very important. And the coaches that I've been around have been great at being able to understand, guy, he's a really talented player, but he's not somebody who wants to play for 10 years. He just wants to make a living and get on with his life. This guy right here, he's motivated. He wants to be one of the greatest to ever do it. And to be able to not be mad at that person, but just understand their mindset and what they want to do, try to motivate them to get better. But at the end of the day, my dad used to always tell me, you can take the horse to the water, but you can't force him to drink. You have to allow your love and your passion for the game to be able to, pour into your students. And the coaches that I've had have always been able to do that with me, and also bring along guys around me.
That's awesome. Larry, I know we've bumped into you with my family a number of times. I want you to tell that line to my daughter next time you see her, because I say that line a lot.
Your daughter's always in good form whenever I see her. She was upset. You won't let her drive the car. That's how she's gonna be able to learn how to drive one day. You gotta let her drive the fairways a little.
You're intimidating, man. You touched on a little bit just there. Sort of connecting with the players, and one of the things that we look at you and your intensity level. What I don't know what mentality maybe do you try to bring to work every day?
Well, I mean, I try to, importantly, I think personally being consistent, right? And I mean that in terms of personality. And I think the more you have your life, in balance, nuances and parallels. I don't want to be, just great athlete and be an okay dad. I don't want to be, you know, great in my community and be a okay brother, right? I want to be great at every single thing that I do, no matter what it is. I want to improve and I want to get better at it, and that's kind of my mindset. And so when I go in, I see a lot of different teammates. I have 90 different teammates that report to camp here in a few weeks, and everybody's different. Everybody comes from different socioeconomic backgrounds, different religions, different cultures, different family structures. But we're all coming together for one common goal. That's to try to win a championship this year. And there's going to be a lot of there's going to be a lot of circumstances that, obviously, we're dealing with COVID, we're dealing with social movements on a daily basis. There's so many different things that you have to think about. But when we come together as a unit, we have to be able to focus on what we're trying to accomplish. Is that saying that we can't focus on other things that are important to us in our lives? Absolutely not. But when we step into that building, we have to be focused on that's all brings us together. And as a leader, I have to be able to recognize that and be able to continue to get guys, pull them in the right direction, and lead by example, so we all are on the same accord.
Excellent. That's great. And thank you, Catherine here. To the folks on the call, please feel free to just chime in here with any questions. Would love to hear from the audience here. But yeah, we're Chandler actually referenced it, Larry, when we were kind of getting teed up here. Of gosh, this is a pretty unusual time. We're seeing it in the golf industry without question. For golf, it translates to a lot more rounds being played at many of our facilities, which creates different challenges, work-life balance, time management, etc. You referenced, Larry, going to be starting camp here in a couple of weeks, and 90 plus people coming back from different places in these unusual times. What might be different this year as compared to previous years in terms of how you communicate with people, how you try to lead the team, et cetera, during these challenging times?
Well, this is unparalleled times, and I think the biggest thing for me is I try not to worry about the things that are unknown, right? There's so many scenarios you can play in your mind about, what if this happens? What if a teammate, hasn't been, social distancing? What about this? I mean, all these things play into your mind. I try to just focus on the things that I actually have control of. And when you're dealing with 90 guys, different agendas, and different rules, and the NFL every single day comes out with a new document of things that they want to do in terms of keeping guys apart and what can be done and what can't be done. What I do always, and this is in life in general, I just try to control the controllables. There's a few things that in life that we all have control over, right? Most of the things we have no control over. I would love for it to be nice today with no rain so I can sneak on the golf course, but from the looks of it, doesn't look like that's going to happen today. It's pretty nasty. I have zero control of that, but what I do have control over all the time is the attitude that I wake up with and the effort that I put in to achieve things that I have on my agenda that day. And so I always try to focus on those two things. And if I'm doing those two things, usually the day is going to be solid. The day is solid. I can work on having a good week. If I have a good week, I can start stacking months. If I have good months, I can start stacking years. And that's kind of how I start look at my life and by the way I go about it.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Small wins. That's good stuff, man. That's really good stuff. Gosh, I look at all that you've accomplished, Larry, and to me, your humility is one of the most admirable amongst many others qualities that you have. How do you stay so humble with all your success?
My grandmother, when I was a youngster, used to always tell me, if you're not humble, you will be you for sure will stumble. And so that always stayed in my mind. And I just don't take myself all that serious. It's I'm not some doctor, in the pediatric ward of one of these hospitals that is saving lives on a daily basis. At the end of the day, I catch an oblong piece of pig skin, and I don't take it that serious. It's something that I love to do and I enjoy it. It's given me a wonderful platform to be able to go out and do positive things in my communities around the country. Yes, it's done all of that, but it's still a sport, and it's still just numbers at the end of the day. You know, 2-3 years from now, your kids will not remember, the number of touchdowns that I scored or how many yards I had and how many catches. They won't care. They'll remember. But that was a nice guy that came over and said hi to you and mom in a fair way. He was really nice. And that means much more to me than anything that I can accomplish on the football field. It's about how you able to make people feel, how you're able to interact with your fellow human beings. Because I think as we look around society right now, that's the biggest issue that we're facing, is that people are not willing to get down on their knees and be able to just communicate with people. At the end of the day, we all want the same thing. We want to be loved, and we want to love people. I think that is the premise of our existence. And the more we're able to do that, the better we'll be able to get along.
You've had an amazing career. You got a bright future in front of you, Larry. This is a question here from the audience. What would you say to others who encounter hurdles, difficulties along the way to achieving their goals?
Anybody that's on this call, you're running your own clubs, they're professionals. You can attest to the fact that there's been struggles throughout the course of your life, but let it be, relationships, feeling like you should have deserved a promotion and somebody beat you for a promotion and another door opened because you didn't hang your head. You just continued to kept chopping away at it every single day. And it's no different for me. There's been many obstacles that I've had to overcome. Losing my mother at 19 years old to a battle with cancer. And I wasn't the best son at the time, dealing with that and not having the grades initially to be able to get into a Division I school and having to go spend 1.5 years in Valley Forge Military Academy where I've never been to Philadelphia, never left home at 17 years old, and all of a sudden I find myself waking up 1,000 miles from home in a military environment and having to figure it out on my own. And so there's so many obstacles that we all have to face in life, and I always like to think about it. Life will knock you down, but it's never okay for you to stay down. And that's kind of my approach. I'm going to go out there and I'm going to attack it the best way I can. There's going to be some obstacles. There's going to be some detours. There's going to be some roadblocks. I got to find where to be able to get through those and keep a positive perspective as I do it.
That's just a great mentality, that's for sure. I got another question here. Actually, it's another question from the audience. A question I like to always ask during the interviews. How would you define being successful? How would you define success?
When your kids come and get into bed with you in the morning and tell you, Dad, I love you, and they emulate what you do, that's success to me. And I see my kids, wanting to dress like me or wanting to talk like me or do things that I do, that lets me know that I'm working in the right direction. I think it starts at home for me. And obviously, it works out from there, right? You make the biggest impact right there with the people that you have the most control over, and that's your family. And in terms of impact, there's nothing more important than my sons, and making sure I'm a positive role model for those youngsters, because at the end of the day, they're going to be a reflection of me and who I really was. I'm the closest male role model to them. I'm the person they look to. I'm the provider, and so when I look at legacy and things of that nature, those are the things that are most important to me, and I feel like I can have the biggest impact on.
That's awesome. I got a laundry list of notes here so far, and we're only 20 minutes into this, so appreciate it, Larry. And that resonates so much for the parents in the audience, which are many of us. What advice, because again, a lot of the folks in here also have younger folks working with you. What advice would you now give to your 20-year-old self? Again, something that we face regularly with our teams.
I would tell myself, you have the ability, but don't take the shortcuts. I think a lot of young people, when they see people in position, they often look at the things that they do better. They try to compare often to other people. And I try my hardest not to do that, because the people that are in position for a reason, right? They've earned the right, for the most part, to be in the positions that they're in. learn from the people that are ahead of you. Learn from the people that have walked the footsteps that you are attempting to walk, because they might be able to provide some insight that you never thought about. They might be able to help you avoid a pitfall that they might have had to overcome. And so if you're able to gain that knowledge and be able to get the perspective and understanding that the person ahead of you has, it might make your transition that much smoother. Treating people with kindness and respect all the time. My parents were really big on character, and characters really defined them on by doing the right thing when nobody's watching. Right? It's always behaving with the utmost respect, and so that's something that I try to teach those principles that my parents taught me to my boys. That's awesome.
That's awesome. That's great stuff, and rings true to 20-year-olds and all of us here today. I think about, your life, which is kind of similar to ours in that you have your in season where it's incredibly singular in nature. Your focus is all in on the team and the team's objectives and making yourself the best that you can be. And then you've got this off season, sort of like us in a golf pro in the northern climate. Talk to us about maybe your daily rituals or habits that you might have, both in season and off season to help you sort of keep yourself, as sharp as you need to be.
So in Arizona, when we get back into the season, it's pretty much like Groundhog Day. Your day's pretty much the same. So I'll take you through a basic week during the season. So Monday is pretty much after a game, you wake up, and you go into work. You get a little workout in, do some treatment, depending on how you feel. If you have any injuries that you sustained during work on Sunday, you go report them. You get MRIs, scans, and all the things that you would need to help yourself recovery. Then you kind of start the recovery process, and then Tuesday is technically our day off. So I get up and get the kids ready for school, get them fed, make sure that all their homework and stuff is in the bags, and then I take them to school. And if I'm feeling good, I'm usually trying to sneak to the golf course and try to get at least 18, maybe 27 in, depending on how I'm feeling that day. And then after that, I go pick up my boys from school. Then we get home and do the homework. And then once everybody's done with the homework, we usually go do some activity. So, talk golf or bowling or, something. And then we get back, do dinner, get them down. And then Wednesday is really, kind of the really tough day. Wednesday and Thursday are a long day. We usually I get to work at probably about 6:30 that morning, and usually start with a lift, get a little run in, do a little cardio. Then we go to our meetings for about 3 hours, and then we go on the field for the 2.5 hours. And after, come in and get a little treatment, have lunch, and then we meet for the rest of the day until probably about 5 o'clock. And our meetings consist of just learning about our opponents, learning their weaknesses, their strengths, people that we feel like we can exploit, and schematically how we plan to go about executing that. Thursday is pretty much a similar variation to Wednesday, but we work more intensively on like third down execution and a little bit of red zone execution. So it's more heavy emphasis on those specific areas of the field. Friday is a little bit shorter day, so we're still in there pretty early, but we get out of work probably around, say 2 o'clock in the afternoon. So it's a little bit quicker practice. This is an abbreviation of everything that we worked on Wednesday and Thursday. And then we also do like a 2-minute drill. So we work on our 2-minute offense on Fridays. And Fridays is usually a day, if I can, I'll try to sneak out and play a little golf after practice with some of my teammates. And then usually Saturdays is a walkthrough. And I usually get in the building around 8 o'clock, and we're in there until about 10 or 11 o'clock. It's a pretty brief day, and it's more like a family day. So home games, we can bring our kids into the facility, and they'll have football games going on. What we're practicing on one field, they'll be all on the other field. And it's funny because their games are a lot more intense than our practices are. More of a walkthrough. And then Sunday is, that day where you're completely locked in, and it's kind of fun day. You've worked extremely hard Monday through Saturday to kind of prepare yourself physically, mentally, and spiritually to go out there and execute at the highest level. And that's kind of like your blank canvas to go out there and put your masterpiece together. And so that's kind of our work week. And then the off season is a lot more helter skelter. I'm kind of all over the place, but I usually come back up here to Minnesota late May when my kids get out of school, and then we stay until late July when I have to go back to work. And home base is here, but I'm moving around. I move around a lot. Go play golf a lot of different places, and it's a fun time of the year for me.
That's great. That's great. Out of curiosity, Larry, how many rounds of golf have you played so far in 2020?
I don't know exactly. I've looked at my Gen Ad to see exactly how many rounds, but I would definitely say it's in the hundreds. With the way things gone this year, and golf was really the only thing that you could do. You really couldn't go out to dinners like you were accustomed to.
Mm-hmm.
You couldn't go to the mall. You couldn't do a lot of things that I think all Americans were pretty accustomed to doing.
Mm-hmm.
And so golf was that one outlet that you could go and do and kind of stay away from people, but still kind of scratch that itch of competitiveness that you love to have. And I was talking to a couple of my buddies from members of different clubs. It's been great this year because with no guest play at most of my clubs, I've gotten to know so many other members that that you just didn't get a chance to be around because you're playing with them. You show up at the range at a certain time and don't have anybody, and you kind of jump in a group with 2 or 3 other guys and girls and go out there and play and build great relationships. So it's been a lot of fun, and I've had some great rounds, and I've had some poor rounds, but I've had some wonderful relationships built over this season.
That's great. That's great. It's one of the things I was thinking about before we got in the call. Gosh, you've got so many folks who are members of these wonderful clubs that you're privileged to be a part of, Larry. And these clubs are populated with very successful individuals. What are some of the lessons that you've learned, just associating and playing and practicing and being around folks at some of these world-class places?
Well, I've learned more in the last 8 years playing golf, from the other players around me than I had learned in the 30 plus years of living. Because let's be realistic, golf is one of those sports that you kind of have to be doing pretty good in life to play it. Because it requires a lot of time, and most times at nice clubs it requires pretty hefty entry fees to be able to play it. So when you're around people who are usually older, they're mature, they've dealt with things in life, they've started businesses, they've sold businesses, and they can provide a lot of great insight, on a lot of things that you may be trying to do one day in life. So I learned a great deal every single day from the people I play with, and it's great to be able to build those really interesting, cool bonds that are lasting, and it's built over a game that we all love to play. And the game of golf has taught me a lot. I just love what the game stands for: the integrity, the honesty that's required to play the game. And I always say golf is like the best 4-hour interview you could ever have. You learn so much about people, just in the 4 hours you're out there walking the fairways.
That's awesome. That's great stuff. Getting a lot of questions here from our audience, so thank you, everybody. So I'll just kind of jump in here. What methods might you use to motivate fellow teammates?
Well, first, I think it's important, like we talked about earlier with coaching,
Mm-hmm.
I have to identify what that teammate, what his personality is like. So, I'll give you an example. 2 of my really closest friends on the team, Trent Sherfield, a young wide receiver, and Christian Kirk, too. I'm really close with both of those guys. They both are second year, they're going into their 3rd year now in the NFL. And both of them are outstanding young men, but they're both wired completely different, right? Trent is an undrafted free agent. He's kind of had to deal with the underbelly of the National Football League, getting a chance to play and then being demoted for, various reasons. And Christian was a second round pick. So he comes in, he makes millions of dollars, gets every opportunity. Not that he didn't deserve it, but it's just a different life, right? And so they're wired very differently. Like Trent, I can get on Trent, I can jump on him, I can yell at him, I can, be hard on him. Christian, I don't do that. I don't do that too. Not saying he can't deal with it, but they're different personalities. So you have to be able to read the guys, understand what their mindset is, what their objectives are, and you're able to adjust accordingly on how you feel it would best serve them to lead, right? Because they look up to you, they respect you, they admire you. And so I need to do a good job of understanding them and making myself available so they can trust me. They know that I have their best interest at hand at all times, no matter what. I'm going to give them advice, and it's not always going to be something they want to hear, but it's going to be the right thing to tell them at the time. And so I think that rapport is built over, time and time again of being consistent and, having behavior that's repeatable. So leadership is something that takes time. It's something that's earned also. And I don't think it's earned by position. I think it's earned because, you showed, over a period of time that you're worthy of leading people. And that's the great thing about sports is when you're voted a captain. I've been captain now, I think 12 or 13 years out of my 16-year career, and it's voted on by your peers, and it's done anonymously. So, they essentially send out an email or, in the meeting, and you just essentially write the name down of the person you feel is best to lead your team. So it's not a popularity contest. It's not you out there campaigning for votes. It's genuinely who the team feels is the best person to speak for them, to lead for them. And, so it's a great honor to be able to have that.
It's awesome. That peer review is so valuable and so important, that honesty amongst team members. That is cool stuff. And actually it's a nice segue because it sounds like you're doing a lot of coaching already, albeit in your captain position. So this was another question that came in from the audience. For you, who is your most influential coach during your playing career? High school, college, professional, maybe even a coach that was not a football coach. Why were they so influential to you?
Oh man, I've had so many great coaches, so many great mentors. This might not make a lot of sense to people, but I had a coach at a after school program. I used to go to after school program at Sabathany Community Center, and there was a chess coach by the name of Willie, right? And I'm an avid chess player. I've been playing chess since I was like 6 or 7 years old, and he was the one that kind of taught me how to play chess, and it really calmed me down and helped me kind of think and strategize and make sure I'm thinking 2 or 3 steps, 4 steps ahead. And he really kind of like walked me through life, and I feel like chess is like kind of a microcosm of life. And he, from like 6 years old to I got to like 12 years old, was one of the best coaches, like life coaches that I ever had. And so like from an early age, I had some pretty good mentorship, some people that really touched my life. Another coach, Coach Don, Frank Jackson was like my first Pee Wee Pop Warner football coach. He passed away a few years ago from a heart attack, but he was a hardworking guy. Didn't have a lot, but dedicated his time to about 30 of us, primarily African American kids who didn't have fathers in their home. Great role model. And if we practiced good, he actually worked multiple jobs. He worked up, there was a Kentucky Fried Chicken off of 42nd and Nicollet back in the day. He was actually on the grill back there, frying the chicken. If we practiced good and played a good game, that he would give split up and eat. So he was always doing what he could, driving us home, getting us little gear, getting us new gloves, if our grades were good. So just doing those type of things for young people, were always, most meaningful. And I always have a lot of respect for those folks because, professional coaches are paid handsomely, right? They're paid hundreds of thousands, $1 million to coach the very, very best of the best, right? When you look at young coaches, the likelihood of you coaching anybody that's going to play even on a collegiate level, are slim to none. You're just out there really for the love of the game and to have a positive impact on some young people. Maybe being able to pour some knowledge into somebody who, might be from a challenging background that you can help, lead them in the right direction, give them some inspiration, and maybe change their trajectory in life. And so that's why I always have this a great respect for the people that coach young folks.
Hey man, that is awesome stuff. You've been so fortunate to have so many wonderful influences in your life, and certainly you are making the most of them. You talked earlier and went through in great detail, frankly, your daily schedule. And this is another question here from the audience. Any tips for maintaining a healthy work-life balance with such an encompassing career?
Yeah, I think it's something that you learn to develop, and I would imagine a lot of the people on this phone call struggle with that balance too. How close do I want to get with my members? Do I want to spend time with them outside of work? Because obviously I have my kids I have to be attentive to. So it's not unique to being a professional athlete, and it's important that you always keep that balance. And I really can gauge it out with my kids, because my kids, I really push them to be open with me, right? So we always have open discussions. Hey, am I being a good dad, man? Last week I had to get on you about, you did something to your brother. I didn't appreciate it. I kind of jumped on you kind of hard. Are we good? Are you okay? I didn't mean to upset you, but I felt like you needed to understand that what you did was wrong. So I try to keep the lines of communication open with my kids all the time, and they're like, Dad, man, you've been gone a lot. You've been traveling. Then I'll shut it down. I'll stay close to the nest more. So I kind of try to read them and read their needs, and just try to that's really what I try to do, and that's kind of how I navigate my schedule kind of.
It's so good. It's so good. So much there, buddy. It's awesome. We got about 10 minutes, so we'll call this our an abbreviated fourth quarter here, because I want to be respectful of your time, Larry, and just again, our gratitude is immense. Another question, and very timely question, given the status of all the stuff that's going on here locally and nationally. In your opinion, what are some of the things that we can do as golf professionals to promote and increase diversity in this game?
That's tough. Because I'm in the inner city or all around the country a whole lot, and golf is just not even on the radar. Kids, I feel like they find it kind of a slow game. It takes a long time to improve and to get better with it. But I often talk to them about the importance of golf, about how it helps you build relationships, and gives you integrity. Even like it with the Evans Scholars Program. You can have the opportunity to be able to put yourself through college if you're willing to put the work in and show the discipline required to be a young caddy. So I often talk to them about the great benefits that there is that the game of golf can provide. But in terms of bringing more young people to the game, I think the First Tee program does an outstanding job. That was my first introduction. I remember meeting Tiger Woods over at Hiawatha when he came out there and did the First Tee program. That kind of really opened my eyes to the game. And I think the more that golf can kind of meet at the intersection with youth, especially in inner city communities, I think it's only good for both. It grows the game, something that we all will benefit from, and it also gives young people the knowledge and experience to know that the game of golf can bring a lot to you too down the road.
That's great. That's great. Yeah, it's certainly some headwind there. All of us on this call are certainly going to continue to do our very best efforts to grow this game and be inclusive. Be an inclusive game. I assure you of that. You talked earlier about coming back to camp here in a couple of weeks, and you're going to bring 90 people from all over the place, and you're all going to come together with a common goal. And, there's so much noise out there. I mean, I think about it all the time, and gosh, how do we keep our eye on the ball, so to speak? Do you have any sort of strategies or approaches to kind of keep everybody philosophically aligned on the team's goal when there's so much noise out there these days?
I'm one of those people. I like to address things head on, and interesting enough, I communicate with our coach often, about things that I feel will be pertinent to address and to talk about, and obviously the social issues, from things that are going on,
Mm-hmm.
the political things that are going on that will be happening in November. Mm-hmm. Obviously with COVID-19 and the impact that that's having on our country, these are things I think should be addressed and talked about. And I really am for open forum, right? I believe everybody should have an opportunity to talk. And when I say everybody, I mean, I don't care if you're an unrestricted free agent that hasn't had any experience in the National Football League, but there's potential that you could have some insight that none of us have thought about. And I think being able to get the input of everybody is really important. And I try to cultivate that in my receiver group and our offense. And, we need to hear from everybody, because everybody's life and experiences can help us make better and more informed decisions. So I try to just make sure I'm gathering everybody and being as inclusive and understanding to people's plights as possible.
That's terrific. That's terrific. I mean, that's really sort of the impetus, really, frankly, for why we have you, Larry. Leadership through these challenging times, right? These are normally we're managing, sort of member and guest feedback and things of that nature. In the spectrum of the world, pretty small potatoes these days. And I think your counsel there to face these really macro dialogues and macro challenges head on and have open and honest communication amongst your team is wonderful counsel for you guys, and certainly for all of us as leaders of our respective organizations. So thank you for sharing that. And I say, I'm looking here at my clock here. It's 8:57. I want to be sensitive here. We've got through all these questions that were submitted here, and again, I just want to say thank you one more time on behalf of all of us as PGA professionals. We couldn't be more excited to see someone as marketable and just magnetic as you are. Loving and embracing this game. I know I have confidence in saying you've played more golf this year than all of us. Something we all aspire to do. But again, just thank you again one more time on behalf of all of us, Larry, and really just look forward to seeing you continue to work on your game. And then most importantly, this fall time, we'll all have you've created, I assure you, a lot more raving fans.
Well, thank you very much, Nathan. I appreciate everything. I love spending time with you, and also want to say hello to a couple of other PGA professionals, my other clubs, Jeff Prangen, who's probably on the call, and Chandler Worthington, who I saw earlier. How you doing, guys? And thank you for everything you guys have done for me and my family as well. So I appreciate the opportunity to spend a few minutes with you guys, and I wish you the very best and a very happy and healthy rest of your summer.
Outstanding. Thank you, Larry. Have a great day, buddy. Be well, bud.